our next question then. And this one is going to be from Cindy Gonzalez from the University of Laverne. And she asks, what advice can you give future leaders who feel defeated and are about to give up?
Leadership is a sometimes lonely experience. And I think it's not just leadership. I think careers, life is difficult. Mm-hmm. And anybody who thinks they can do something as difficult as life or as difficult as work by themselves is crazy. We are just not that good. Human beings are just not that strong. And so we have to foster and build relationships with others, because every single one of us, mm-hmm. I don't care how successful, I don't care how powerful, you absolutely will have days where you're consumed by self-doubt.
Right.
You will absolutely have days where you are defeated. Mm-hmm. You will absolutely have days where you want to throw in the towel. And only if you have somebody in your life who comes to you and says, I got your back.
Right.
You got to do this. We need you. You got to keep going. Then you will give up.
Okay.
You have to have somebody who loves you. And the only way you'll have someone in your life that loves you is if you're willing to love somebody else. And that you have to find somebody that you believe in and you want to be there for them, to encourage them and inspire them. Then the odds are pretty high that they'll come to you. And in those times of loneliness and weakness, that you do call someone and say, I'm struggling. So this book nearly didn't happen. It was the most difficult thing I ever wrote. You know, I was looking at the social science, the biology of how the human brain worked, and overlapping that on corporate culture. And I couldn't understand why all the social scientists, all the biologists, they weren't social scientists, all the biologists that I was interviewing, why none of them hadn't written this book. It seemed so obvious to take the biology and overlap it on corporate culture. And I realized, because it was impossible to write. Because every chapter could have been its own book. It just went on and on and on and on. It just was never ending. It was mm-hmm. impossible to organize. I finished my first book in about 6 months. This book took me 2 years. I lost 2 relationships because of it. And I actually got to the point where I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't figure it out. I was not a happy person. And I stood up from my desk and I went for a long walk, and I literally was planning my exit. I knew I'd have to give the money back to the publisher for my advance. I'd have to pay them back. Mm-hmm. I knew I'd be humiliated because I'd have to tell everybody, oh yeah, I'm not writing that book. And I was literally planning the steps of my exit, including rationalizing, look, there's 10,000 books published every year. If one doesn't get published, no one will notice. I was literally planning my exit and rationalizing that it was okay for me to quit. You know, sometimes you have to know when it's time to quit, that whole thing. I don't know why, but I called a buddy of mine who was in the Air Force Special Forces. I don't even think I said hello. I just mm-hmm. called him, I said, he picked up the phone, and I said, what do you do when you can't do the mission? And as is his nature, he started telling me a story. And he said that he used to fly Pavlo helicopters, big Special Forces helicopters. And he said there was a mission that they were ordered to go on, mm-hmm. That everybody knew from the intelligence that it was a suicide mission. And it wasn't like a kill Hitler mission where we were all going to die, but we'd kill Hitler. This is we were all going to die, and we wouldn't achieve our objective. Like, everybody knew, right? The defenses were too strong. Everything was too weak. Like, we were too weak. Like, it was a suicide mission. And they were prepping their helicopters, and his wingman says to him, what do we do? Like, do we refuse to go? Like, they had wives and kids. Like, he said, do we refuse to go? And my friend turned to him and said, no, this is what we sign up for. We go. So he said to me, is this book more powerful or less powerful than Start With Why? I said, it's affecting me more intensely. The research is incredible. It's more powerful than Start With Why. He says, okay, I got a funny story to tell you. He said, before I met you, I wanted to drop out of the Air Force. And I read this crazy little book called Start With Why, and it re-inspired me, and now I love being in the Air Force, and I've really become the leader that I wanted to be. He says, if you're telling me this book is more important, we need this book. He said, this is what you signed up for. You have to do this.
Wow.
I turned around, went back to my computer, and continued writing. Now, the mission was scrapped, thank goodness, obviously. He never had to fly that mission. Cooler heads prevailed. But yeah, he said, this is what you signed up for. You have to do it. So I turned around and went back and finished. And so this is the same thing. If you're going to commit yourself to a course of action, you've got to make sure you have that person that you can call and say, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. That's what I did. If I didn't call him, I would have quit.
Wow.
I called him and said to him, I can't do it. And he said, I got you.
Support system.
You got to have it. You got to have people
important.
who love you. And the only way you have people who love you is if you love people. It's the only way it works.
That's good. Thank you.